Welcome in to the 38th episode of the Southern Boy Sports Podcast. My name is Drew Hole, along to my co-host Ben Clay.
What's going on, guys?
It has been a long time since we have recorded. Kidding, it hasn't been long at all. Short week since we've recorded. We're recording this episode on Saturday night. FAU Kansas State battling it out right now in the Elite Eight. Ben, it's been a really fun ride. We've got a very special guest coming on episode 39, but we've got a fun one here planned for the 38th episode of the Southern Boy Sports Podcast. Ben, let's start with you, though. How's your week been?
It was good, man. A lot of baseball still. A lot of baseball.
For sure.
And it's a good thing.
Yep.
Schoolwork is always rough, but, it's the first week back, so it wasn't that bad.
Yep.
Still, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season and getting to that tail end of March Madness, and it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, no one seeds in the Elite Eight, Benny, for the first time in a while. I think the first time ever, actually. There's never been a one seed. There's never been a year where a one seed didn't make the Elite Eight. And this is the year. I could have told you that coming in. It was such an open field of teams. I didn't think one team was like, this team's dominant. Alabama was probably the closest to that. But I think you compare Alabama to a lot of those other teams from the past, like those 2017, 2018 Villanova and North Carolina games and all that stuff. I think those teams were, it's going to be Villanova. It's going to be, Michigan had that one good year. Like you knew, like collectively, probably who was going to be there. And this year, you didn't really know. Like Purdue, we saw flashed out of. Alabama took a couple tough losses. A lot of people were questioning Houston because they were in the American Athletic and not a power conference. So, yeah, man, it's been a rocky road, but FAU, Kansas State battling it out. Ben, I'm a big fan of Marquise Noel, I will say. The short game, 21-19, 19 assists in an NCAA tournament game, Ben. Were you watching that Michigan State, K-State game?
Yes,
One of the
best
games I've ever watched.
He went absolutely absurd. That's like a top performance in my March Madness history.
Yeah, I think it was the top assist number in
most
the history
assists in a game in March Madness.
Yeah. So it was a great – other than that game, honestly, not a great weekend for me. My Vols took a tough loss to FAU, but, hey, if the Owls are a Final Four team, I can cope with that loss. And even if they lose to K-State, it was a solid team. Should have won the game, but we'll stay away from my Vols because I'm still salty about it regardless. Other than that, though, the Creighton-Princeton game wasn't too close. Xavier got their doors blown off by Texas. The Gonzaga-UCLA game was good, but last night's action, Friday night, the 24th, not a ton of super exciting games. But, Ben, if you clicked on this episode, guys, you know what we're talking about. We're talking about the future of two football teams, one in the SEC, one in the ACC, the Noles and the Aggies. Ben, I'm excited to talk this over because I think both these teams really, especially A&M, they can only go up, right? At 5-7, it's going to be hard to do less than that.
Yeah.
Florida State, looking at a team that's got a lot of upside. Jordan Travis, Jared Verse, kind of the poster boys of this FSU team. Will obviously dive deeper in it. But Ben, any opening comments of these two teams? Any takeaways that you want to get out of the way before we kick it off?
No, I'm good. I'm excited to talk about them.
We started with trivia last episode. I want to give you a trivia question, just one question here to kick off episode 38. Okay. Talking about the defensive end from Florida State, Jared Verse, wearing number 5. He's a transfer from the FCS level. Can you tell me what school Jared Verse transferred from? It's a tough one.
No.
I know.
Yeah. See, I played OU, right, and I remember them talking about it.
Yep.
About his little journey up.
Yeah. They talked about it in the LSU game as well. Underrated. I'm surprised.
Yeah. I love that game. That was a great game.
I'm honestly surprised that game wasn't on the top 10 most viewed college football games that you sent me last week. Because I kind of forgot.
It was literally week 0. Everyone had turned their TVs
No, that was
on.
week 1. That was week 1.
It was the first game of week 1. That's what it was.
Yeah. Because that was the same night as you had Florida, Utah that night. That honestly.
No, that wasn't that night.
Yeah, it was the same night. I guarantee it was the same night.
No way.
Biggest. I promise, Ben. I'd almost put my life on it. Biggest scam of 2022 was when Florida beat Utah and got ranked top 15 within one game. I remember thinking that was like,
I remember that. I know.
That was wild. Like, I
and
don't
then
even.
They played y'all, which boosted thinking even better.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm going back to week 1, checking out when these games were played. My phone is absolutely. Yeah, here we go. Okay.
Because I was in different places for those games.
Yeah, you had Duquesne and Florida State in week 1, I think. Maybe that was week 2. Was that game week 2?
No way.
Yeah, it was. It was not the same weekend as Florida and Utah. You called that one.
Oh, see, I told you that, but no, you're both wrong on the other one.
It was the same week.
Okay.
Florida State, LSU, week 1. They played. I think Florida State played week 0 against Duquesne.
Duquesne. That's probably what it was.
Because that was the game where the kid's pants was up here.
Oh yeah.
In that picture.
Everyone was.
He was getting torched. Yeah. So that was a classic.
But
Ben, last opportunity to guess the previous school of Mr. Verse.
Was the school color purple?
Yes.
Oh no! I knew it was something purple.
Yep. They're never.
Does it start with North?
No.
Dang it. Okay, I'm not.
It is in the Northeast, though. It's a school in the Northeast, if that helps you out any.
Northeast. Oh no! I'm not getting this.
Okay. It is the University of Albany, the Danes of Albany. American East. Yeah, that's right, for basketball.
They're a solid SES program.
They're all right. I don't know about solid. They're a decent team at best at the FCS level.
Okay, that's fair.
But yeah, Jared Verse, one of the guys that we're going to talk about pretty heavily in this episode. But I think we're going to start with the Aggies, Ben. I'm excited to talk Texas A&M. It's going to be a shorter episode, more than likely. The last episode like this, we talked about Tennessee and Oklahoma, and we're letting some other teams shine here in 38. I will start by saying, make sure you go follow our socials at Southern_boy_sports_pod on Instagram and at @so_boy_sports on Twitter. Give it a 5-star review if you're listening on Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave the video a like if you're watching. Make sure to use code SBS15 at universitytraditions.biz and check out this Auburn, Alabama cap and a lot of other ones. So we lost Ben for a second. He lost some Wi-Fi, but he will join back. So make sure to go use that code at universitytraditions.biz. They're a great sponsor and really fun to work with. We've got Ben back here on the show. The second time you've dropped off the call, Ben. Is your Wi-Fi under wraps?
It's not. I don't even know. It should be good now.
It could be from the storm last night. That was a brutal storm.
Well, I'm on the data, right? Because the Wi-Fi literally is on not doing the Wi-Fi, but the data might be better.
Ben's continuing to lag out. So, we'll see how it goes down the stretch of this episode. But Ben, before we start, let's talk about the storm last night. I know we've brought something up and then said, before we start over and over, but this time for real, before we start, Ben, wanted to talk about the storm last night, a big one. It was across the Southeast, and I know some homes in Mississippi were wrecked, and I know some stuff like that happened. So wanted to preface by saying prayers out to everyone in that big storm. But here in Nashville, some serious rain. A dead squirrel plunked against my window last night while I was sleeping. It was horrifying. I thought we were getting intruded. And just wanted to get your take on last night's storm before we get to some Texas A&M football.
Yeah, it was not a fun one. I really didn't have any problems.
Okay. Well, you didn't have a dead squirrel almost fly through your window at night.
No, I know, I'm not. That's why I'm not hating. I'm just saying I didn't have any problems. No dead squirrels were flying around here, but the lightning was bad. The lightning, I'll be trying to sleep and you just see it like the brightest thing in your life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you remember that video of Drew Brees getting struck by lightning in Venezuela? Have you ever seen that?
Do you think that was for real or no?
He didn't get struck, but it did strike behind him, and it looked like he got disintegrated, and it was like a blast behind him. It was actually, if he would have got hurt, it would not have been a funny video. But the fact that he came out after and was like, "I'm totally okay, guys. Just want to let everyone know," that kind of did make it funny. So, but Ben, let's actually get into this episode. Episode 38. Small talk time's over. It's time to talk about the Aggies. Jimbo Fisher is going to be mentioned a lot in this episode. Used to coach at FSU, now coaches at A&M. So we're getting a 2-for-1 deal on Coach Fisher. Ben, I'll let you open it up on A&M. I got a few takes I want to throw in here. But like I said, the only way to go is up with Connor Weigman and the Aggies because last year was not it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, they need people to step up. Weigman and Haynes King were like such a weird duo. Max Johnson, but he's gone, so there's that. I mean, but they need somebody to figure out what they're doing. You lose Devin Achane. One of maybe their only like piece that I actually enjoyed watching on that team. He was a great running back. He's gone, and they have a bunch of young receivers like Evan Stewart, who they need him to step up to. So this team really, it's more about you have the players but you just need to figure out how to put it all together. And I feel like that really is on Jimbo Fisher. So if A&M has another down season, Jimbo is more than likely gone, I would think. I mean, you need to go at least 500, I would say, for them to be like, okay, maybe this can work out. But if they keep on doing this, I mean, they're going to have problems.
Yeah. Devin Achane is gone, obviously. Anais Smith, is he back,
He's
Ben?
coming back. I'm pretty sure he's coming back because he got his COVID year or something.
Yeah. He only played 4 games last year. He is obviously in a little bit of legal trouble last season, which ultimately didn't help him out. Only got 15 passes, 2 touchdowns, under 300 yards. So that's a key piece we talked about coming into this season. We talked SEC expectations last preseason. We mentioned Anais Smith's name a lot, right? He only played 4 games. He wasn't there. Revolving door at quarterback is never going to work. We've seen it in a lot of situations, and it's rarely works out. Like you said, Devin Achane, over 1,000 yards on the ground, but you're going to need pieces to step up. Guys are going to have to fill roles because you're leaving. I mean, you got the number 1 class in the nation, and I understand that a lot of people moved around, and a lot of people ultimately didn't stick around. They transferred after last year's 5-7 season, but at the end of the day, if you don't start developing that number 1 class, then it all goes to waste. You can have the number 1 class, be hyped up, be preseason top 5 seasons in a row, but if you never win any games, I mean, it doesn't do anything. So you're going to have to start developing those players. You're going to have to start putting people in the position to succeed. And one of those guys, Amari Daniels, out of the backfield, he was only a sophomore last season. He backed up Devin Achane and the true freshman Le'Veon Moss, who a lot of people didn't expect to get playing time as a true freshman, one of those guys. All these guys, all these young bucks are going to have to step up and say, it's got to be our time. So the quarterback competition is going to be a tense one. Like you said, Max Johnson's out of the picture, but Haynes King, Connor Weigman, Ben, start us off by breaking down this QB battle in College Station.
It's a weird one. I think it really will come down to, who they trust more at quarterback. I think, me personally, I'd go with Weigman. Weigman had a 8 touchdown to 0 interception ratio. He had more average yards per pass, and his completion percentage was slightly worse. And he had a better QB rating. Connor Weigman was just better. They won more games with him at quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of being a leader too, I think Weigman's the way to go.
Yeah. I like Weigman as well. I think we saw, and the biggest disclaimer about talking spring camp, talking QB battles is the fact that, unfortunately, me and Ben are not credentialed media members to get into Texas A&M spring camp. So we have no idea outside of the videos that we see on social media, the reports that we see from those credentialed media members in College Station, we don't know what Haynes King and Connor Weigman are progressing like. We don't know what the everyday looks like. We can only go off last season, and it doesn't even have to be stats. You can look at Connor Weigman and say, honestly, he just played better football, and I think that's true. Didn't throw an interception like you mentioned, almost 900 yards on 73 completions last season. He just outperformed Haynes King. He's only a true freshman. He's got the size. He can take off and run, and look, he's only a sophomore, so you've got time to develop the kid. Haynes King's only a junior, so you never know. But I think you got to take the upside of Connor Weigman because the way he played in those last couple of games down the stretch for the Aggies, I really liked watching. But let's get to the receiving core. They It's a thin one. I'm not gonna lie. It's a thin one. You've seen some pretty good receivers.
Where did he go?
In the past, Mike Evans, Christian Kirk, all those guys in the Manziel era. Unfortunately, you don't really have that type of produce now talent with the A&M Aggies. So, Ben, let's start with Evan Stewart, the true freshman wide receiver for the Aggies. What are we? You can either talk about Stewart or encompass the whole wide receivers room because it was a thin one last year.
I mean,
what's the key?
Yeah, they were a thin one, and really, I mean, they really just got thinner. But you have Moose Muhammad too, who those guys, he's great. And Anaya Smith. So it's really a good mix of like you have a sophomore, a junior, and a senior. You have some guys who can lead. Anaya Smith, if he can get his leadership skills right, I mean, he'd be a great leader for this team.
Yeah.
And so they lose Chris Marshall though, who was a great freshman, 5-star freshman receiver. Lose him. He did not get enough action.
No, he did.
But really,
he's the Ole Miss now, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. In the SIP, baby.
That's why I was wondering where he went.
Yeah.
But it's hard to have a good receiving season
with a bad quarterback. I think we might have lost Ben once again. Not completely sure. He's freezed up. If you're watching on YouTube, Frozen Ben is among us. But Evan Stewart, true freshman receiver. Oh, there's Ben. He's back. He's back again. Ben glitched out.
Let me finish what I was about to say.
Yeah. Continue your point.
It's hard to have a good receiving season when there's no good quarterback play. So if they can find that consistent quarterback play, I think it's a solid enough receiving core to where you can get 8 wins in the SEC.
Yeah. I just want to announce this. I've been listening to the episodes, back whether I'm driving somewhere or whatever, and I realized I click my pen when I'm thinking an unbelievable amount. So I'll be like, yeah, like that. It's like the
I don't even remember that. I don't even.
It's like my new No Doubt About It, which was the 2022-2023 seasons thing. The clicking the pen may have to be the symbol of thinking, because when I was talking about Graham Mertz or Casey Thompson, I also called Casey Thompson Skylar Thompson. So yeah, that was rough.
It was last year was more you saying, and we'll move on.
Yeah, we'll move on.
She said that 4 times every episode.
Yeah, more than that. I mean, 4 times every 7 minutes. I would say that
so bad.
Here you are.
I know.
Yeah, I think we can tell.
Yeah.
Anyways, Evan Stewart, the guy that I want to talk about. He's 6 feet, 175 pounds, coming out of high school. So obviously, with the weight training system and all that, and the Division I SEC program, the weight has gone up, the strength has gone up. It's his second year. He was a true freshman, a 5-star, number 2 wide receiver in the class in that 2022 class. And look what he did. Caught 53 passes, 649 yards, had 2 touchdowns.
Great season, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he led the team in receiving yards as a true freshman. Obviously, Anaya Smith was out, so he had to step up, and he did. So I think there's no reason Evan Stewart can't be one of the better wide receivers in the SEC this season. He was only a true freshman, only 18 years old, so he gains another year of experience. He becomes a better, more potent part of the offense, especially playing with Wigman or Haynes King in his second year. And, like you mentioned, Moose Muhammad, another absolute beast, another underclassman, only a sophomore. So you bring back a lot of guys. It was a thin class last year, or excuse me, a thin core last year, just because your guys were so young. You didn't have a lot of older veteran pieces to go out there and produce. And the one guy you did in Anaya Smith, he ended up getting in trouble legally and, was unable to get on the field down the stretch of the season. But, I think there's guys that you got to incorporate more heading into next season. Like you said, Marshall was one of those guys who transferred away. But the tight end, Donovan Green, he caught for over 200 yards last season.
Just about to say that.
All these true freshmen really had.
Sophomore.
Yeah. They all had big impacts. And I think the biggest criticism on A&M last season was you got a bunch of young guys. You can get the number 1 class, but they can't produce now. And ultimately they did kind of, right? They produced at a pretty high rate, but you're not seeing senior production of 1,400 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns 7 touchdowns. You're seeing 650 yards and 3 touchdowns, which is a very acceptable stat line for a true freshman in an SEC program. That's more than acceptable, but you can't rely on true freshmen to be your wide receiver one. They didn't, obviously, and Anaya Smith kind of let him down in that sense. But yeah, Jimbo's got a stacked house in the wide receiver room. They lose Marshall, like you said. They lose A. Shane, who's a pretty good receiving back, but a couple of young bucks returning in that room. So yeah, I mean, any other takeaways? Any other takeaways been from this receiving class?
No, I think they have the pieces. It's just whether they can put it together or not.
Yeah. We'll go over a couple of recruits. They got a 5-star true freshman, top 50 player in the class, Ruben Owens at running back. They got wide receiver Raymond Cottrell.
He's good.
He's top 30 player at his position. He's going to have to be probably someone that sees the field a little more than you would if you went to Alabama or Georgia. You're going to be getting receptions this season. You got to be ready to play. He's got the frame to play. I think he's ready. At tight end, 6'5", 235, Jaden Platt, and a couple other guys on the defensive end of the ball. So another solid recruiting class from A&M. Obviously not the number one class they brought in 2022, but 12th in the country is not bad, right? So A&M's going to be they're going to have high expectations. Are they going to have top 5 in the nation expectations like they had in 2022? Absolutely not. But you can see them winning a couple games down the stretch of this season. Ben, got a couple more here on the Aggies. Let's talk about Petrino in the offensive coordinator position this season. We saw Jimbo Fisher comment on it earlier in the spring cycle. It was probably a week or two ago, maybe, if I'm remembering correctly. And they asked him if Bobby Petrino was going to call plays. And he said, "I don't hate the idea. We'll see how it goes, blah, blah, blah." Which, honestly, Jimbo called the plays last year. I highly criticized across any media platform that ever covered college football. Was not a good idea. Ended up being terrible. Plays were too old. All this and that. Now you see Bobby Petrino come in. It's a risky hire, but not a bad one. And now you may not even let him call the plays. And if you do, it's hard. Anytime a head coach gives up playing calling duties, right? You never see the guy just be like, "Here you go," just take it.
Right.
It's
not that easy.
You're going to want to implement yourself in the offense. Petrino's a good, solid play caller, but if Jimbo holds on too much, it could be another bad offensive season from the Aggies. But yeah, Petrino, not a terrible hire, but Jimbo's going to have to let go of that playbook.
I think it's better. I think if Jimbo can get that off like his plate, I think he can work more on the development of his players and things that he should be worrying about rather than him play calling.
Yeah.
So I think it could, if the play calls end up being bad, it could hurt them, but I think it will help in the ending run.
Yeah. Petrino came over from Missouri State, Ben. If you do remember correctly, Missouri State took an SEC team down to the wire. Trivia part 2 here for you, Benny. What SEC team did Missouri State take down to the wire in 2022?
I know who it was. It wasn't Kentucky.
It was not.
It wasn't Ole Miss.
Ben's getting peppered with FCS trivia here in episode 38.
It wasn't Vandy.
No.
Could have been Missouri. I'm going to go with Missouri.
It was Arkansas. KJ Jefferson and Sam Pittman got taken down to the wire. I do believe they ended up getting
was KJ playing and they almost lost it?
It was a good game. Arkansas State came out firing. And let's look at the final score of that game. Because I remember, I think I was in Knoxville for that game. And that was a good one.
I feel like that would be a Malik Hornsby game.
It was a 38-27 game, but it went to – it was heading into the third quarter. And then Arkansas outscored them 21-3 in the fourth.
I remember talking about that.
Yeah. Let's look at Arkansas's box score for that game. No, KJ Jefferson, 19 for 31, 385 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Rushing, Raheem Sanders played. 22
Sanders was so good.
Yeah, had a great game. So, yeah. But anyways, back on the A&M route, Petrino, the play calling is going to be obviously very important. It's going to be probably – one of the most important turnovers from 2022 is to see how the play calling transforms under Bobby Petrino. But Ben, last thing here on Texas A&M, and then we can get over to the Noles of Florida State. Let's talk about their schedule here in 2023. What?
Yeah, no, they gave themselves some games.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what. I mean,
they've got Miami again, which is an interesting.
You think Miami's going 0-12?
No, that was Virginia, Ben. That was Virginia.
Sorry,
not Miami. Miami's not going 0-12 this season.
Miami could be a good team. That's a losable game. I think these first 4 games, you see them, I think they're going 3-1.
I think they could go 2-2. No,
I think they could. But I think they.
Yeah, I think they go 3-1, 2.
I think they could beat Miami. I think Auburn or Miami they'll lose.
I think they could certainly lose to both of those two teams. I like Auburn.
That's what I'm saying. I think
The hardest thing about a new offensive coordinator and a probably a new quarterback, a new running back is you really you don't know. The future is bright. The future is very bright for A&M. If you look into what they've got, Jimbo Fisher may be restraining them. I won't lie to you. I think you get it's one of those situations where if you fire him, you probably screw yourself into a coach that's going to take some years to build the program because you're going to get transfers out. You're going to get all this. You're going to get huge backlash. But you keep Jimbo, you just expect 7-5, 8-4, just like every other season. So I wouldn't be super surprised if they go 2-2. I think they beat New Mexico, and that's kind of the game where we'll see what team they are. Because if you remember week 1, 2022, they played Sam Houston State. It was like that game that got delayed for like an hour. And they won 31-0, but I mean, you could just tell it was not a good team. I remember
it was like what was it, like 3-0 at half or something?
Yeah, it was something crazy like that, and they blew the game open. But I mean, you didn't like what you saw.
Yeah.
So New Mexico, you're at home. You got to go out there. You got to show the country it's a revenge tour for A&M. That's the kind of tone that they're going to have to set. If they go out there and win 28-21. Then we may be in for another lackluster Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher season. But yeah, then the next 3 games are absolutely brutal. Arkansas,
I could
Alabama.
see a 7-5 season. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Arkansas, Alabama, and Tennessee, 3 in a row. I think you lose all 3 of those games, frankly. Tennessee, you never know because Tennessee could just lose any game they play. But I like Tennessee and Joe Milton in that game, especially at Neyland. So Alabama's going to be good, and Arkansas is going to be good as well. So, I don't think they win any of those games. That being said, Alabama, Jalen Milroe wins that battle.
A&M against Alabama.
Alabama beat them A&M beat them when Arkansas was what? God, what am I saying? I'm mixing up the A's and the SEC.
Alabama was good. Mm-hmm.
Alabama was number 1.
Did it last year too.
Yeah. So maybe Alabama's kryptonite is Texas A&M. We'll see. That's October 7th. That's at Kyle Field, so a home field advantage that game. And then that Arkansas game's obviously at Jerry World.
That was when A&M had that horrific play call on from the 5, and they tried to fire one to Evan Stewart, and it was like the worst jump ball ever.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, because
everyone was so mad. I was like, "What was that throw?"
Because Alabama was kind of shaken out of the gate, and then they almost lost to A&M, and then they ended up getting back on track somewhat down the stretch. But I think you lose the Ole Miss game. I think you lose the LSU game.
I think they beat Miss State and Abilene Christian.
Yeah, and then probably the South Carolina Texas A&M game will be good. That's at Kyle Field, so the 12th man will be there.
Oh yeah.
But then they travel to Vaught Hemingway to take on Ole Miss November 4th.
I think they could do something that game, but I don't know.
I feel like Ole Miss and A&M stay relatively competitive when they play each other. I'm sure there's outliers that if I say this and clip
Ole Miss
it,
is the better team. Yeah, I would say so, but A&M could do something.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move down. Then they got LSU. At LSU, I think that's a loss. I'm not going to lie. That's probably a loss. And then the SEC championship. But I honestly...
You don't need to talk about that one.
Yeah, I don't see them playing in that one. So, they've got the spring game April 15th. So definitely something to keep an eye out on. You don't know really
They're
what the
coming
team
up.
like exactly, but you're going to see who's going to suit up on that first team at quarterback. You're going to see what they look like on the field. So I'm sure that'll probably be on some kind of SEC network or ESPN Plus or something like that. So it's going to be one of the more intriguing spring games, along with the likes of, Ole Miss, Alabama, Nebraska, Georgia, with all those QB battles. So, yeah. Ben, are you ready to jump to the Noles?
I'm ready to talk about the Noles
here on A&M, and it's time to get to Florida State, right? Ben, Florida State, Jordan Travis, this team,
they're exciting.
They're dangerous. They're dangerous in 2023. That I'm trying to find the spring top 25 that we made. Is that on Instagram?
Yes.
Okay. So if you want to look at our spring top 25s, maybe not. But they will eventually. What'd you say, Ben?
It is. Here, let me check. I have them at 6. You have them at 5.
Yeah. So we're both pretty high. Both pretty high on FSU heading into the season. Pretty cool preseason spring top 25 graphics over on Instagram. Make sure to go over there, follow the Instagram page, get us to 100 followers, and check out that graphic as well. But yeah, I got Florida State at 5. I'm high on Florida State. I think they've got what it takes. And I think anytime a team brings back a whole lot of production from the last season, I think it's the easiest choice to put them highly ranked, right? I mean, you just get that feeling that Florida State's going to come together. They're going to go out there. They're going to get the job done this season. They've got a lot of returning pieces, and that's always dangerous in college football. So, I like what I see there. But, Ben, let's get your opening thoughts on FSU.
I mean, this team, it has everything it needs. You have a great quarterback, a consistent quarterback, a smart quarterback. You have a good running back who's younger, a junior, and almost ran for 1,000 last year. You have younger receivers. You have Micah Pittman and junior Johnny Wilson, who I think could be an absolute breakout. Him against Oklahoma was one of the most embarrassing things in my life. He had that one-handed catch going like it was like the drive of the game, and he had like a one-handed catch, and I was so it was good. So like I couldn't be. It was one of those where it's good, so you can't be mad, but it was on your team, so you're mad.
Yeah.
So that happens. But they're a good team. A lot of returning pieces. Like you were saying, Jared Verse is sensational. He's really good, and they are a team that I'm gonna be super excited to watch, and I'm definitely gonna have to turn on some FSU games this year.
I think you get a lot of dark horse Heisman candidates on the field when you watch Florida State.
I mean,
Jordan Travis is one of them. Trey Benson is another one. 990 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 13 games played. He was only a junior. He comes back as a 9 rushing touchdowns. That's not
pretty
solid.
That's not Heisman.
It's not
anything.
I didn't say he should have won Heisman in 2022. I said he's a dark horse to win it in 2023.
He's not.
Hendon Hooker was not a Heisman quarterback in 2022, but he was in 2023, and he got robbed.
It's different. Completely different.
How?
This team has a quarterback.
He still got 154 carries. So, I mean, it's not like they didn't hand him the ball. He got 154 touches and average.
But also, look at it. The backups. The backup had 95. I mean, like Trayshawn Ward had 95 carries, 650 yards. They're not just giving Trey Benson the whole load.
Well, Trayshawn Ward transferred to Kansas State, so he won't even be there anymore. So you get Toa Feely. Toa Feely's your backup. But if Trey Benson's your go-to guy, I'm not saying he's going to win the Heisman. I think he could have a Deuce Vaughn-esque season. He's a really good running back. He's not going to be in the Heisman conversation. But you get Jordan Travis out there, you go 11-1, you're in playoff conversations, right? You make
Jordan Travis.
Jordan Travis.
You make him your
bowl. I mean, this kid is really, really good. 3,200 yards, 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions last season. Almost a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. 5-to-1. And I like Jordan Travis, Ben. I like him.
No, I do too. Yeah. If you were saying dark horse for Heisman, Jordan Travis, that's perfectly fine with me. I'm not mad about that.
Maybe I shouldn't have started the conversation by saying dark horse Trey Benson. Really, really good breakout, all ACC first team running back Trey Benson. Johnny Wilson is going to be good as well.
He's 6'7".
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. 897 receiving yards this past season. And then behind him, you got I don't want to butcher this name.
Ontaria.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure he's gone. So Michael Pittman is behind him.
Yeah.
Have you seen Michael Pittman's YouTube channel?
I have not seen Micah. I've seen Michael's.
Yeah, Michael Pittman Jr.'s got a YouTube channel, but I think Micah's got one with okay. This would be awkward if they've broken up, but his girlfriend at the time, Maddie Schur, who played basketball at Oregon when they were both at Oregon, and then he went to Florida State and she went to Kentucky. So the odds that they're still together could be slim. Low. So I'm not going to try and sell my boy out, but no, Michael Pittman could be an entertaining receiver. He was always solid at Oregon and at FSU with Jordan Travis returning. I just think this team's got the makings to be a really, really good team. I like Mike Norvell. He was good at Memphis when he was there. Being good at the group of five level doesn't always mean you can transfer it up to the Power Five, but I think Coach Norvell has shown that is what something that he's able to do. So, yeah. You have another position, on defense. Let's talk about Jared Verse, Ben. Let's talk about Jared Verse. The kid's good, right? And let's talk about Greedy Vance Jr. as well. Very entertaining to watch last season. 3 picks, 8 tackles. Like he's right there in the secondary. He's returning, and they just returned so many important pieces. I think overall across the board, they're going to be a very veteran team. And if they don't get it this year, if they don't make the playoff this year, if they don't make the ACC championship game this year, it's not, national title or bust. But I think there's a certain level of success FSU wants to reach this year. And if they don't, it will certainly be a disappointing season.
Yeah, I agree. But also, I think right now, people look at Florida State as the place they want to go. After the last year, everyone was like, when Travis Hunter decommitted, everyone was like, no one wants to go to FSU. I mean, it's kind of on the decline. But Jordan Travis really picked this team up, and all these underrated players have shown out, and they're ready to make a run. And I think they definitely can.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, they beat good teams. They lost. The concerning thing about Florida State last year was they lost to the best 3 teams they played. Maybe the best 3 or 4 teams they played. They lost to Wake. They lost to NC State, and they lost to Clemson. So big win over LSU. You like that win? Maybe
they were all close, though.
Yeah, I mean, they were competing in the game. They lost to NC State by 2. They lost to Clemson by less than a touchdown. So you're there, right? Then again, you go out, you beat Florida, you beat LSU, right? You blow the doors off of a Syracuse team who was pretty streaky down the stretch of last season. You beat Oklahoma in the Cheez-It Bowl by only 3. So it was just a roller coaster of final scores. That being said, I mean, they lost the middle 3 games of their schedule, and they had a 4-game win streak before those 3 games and a 6-game win streak after those 3 games. So if they can figure out how to win those 3 games against top 25 opponents in the ACC, I mean, that if they could have won 2 of those games, they're an 11-1 team and probably in a pretty good New Year's Six bowl. But ultimately, they couldn't get the job done. They made it close against Louisville. They made it close against LSU, and they just were really shaky, and made it close against Florida as well. So it was just you're one step away. You're one player away. You're one progression away from becoming a team that could be atop the ACC next year. And I don't doubt that at all, Ben. I really don't.
Right. The difference is that looking at their schedule, they separated those games this year. LSU, you got week 1 again. And then you play Southern Miss, should be easy, and Boston College, which if you play smart, it's easy. And then you have Clemson week 4. So you got 2 good weeks in between LSU and Clemson. You play Virginia Tech, Syracuse, and Duke. Should win those 3 games. Then you have Wake. Then you play Pitt, who is not good right now. And then you play Miami. Could be a good game.
Yeah.
Then you get North Alabama. you're calming down a bit, and then you play Florida. Florida
Right.
with a mid-Florida team. Their schedule sets themselves up to have a good season.
Yeah. Their schedule sets them up. A guy like Jared Verse on the defensive side of the ball. I know we've talked about him a lot, but he was top 25 in the nations in sacks last year.
He's really good.
He had 20 solo tackles, 22 assisted tackles. He was flying all over the field. And at a defensive end position, you see the 9 sacks, you say that's a pretty good season. But you see him being able to make tackles off the ball, him being able to chase down running backs and stuff like that. He's a freak of nature, and it kind of showed against LSU. The announcers liked him, and the media started to recognize him. And heading into 2023, he's one of the best defensive ends in football and could eventually spring himself into the top 3 rounds of the draft. So I really like what I see out of the Noles this season. Like you said, Ben, a schedule that could put them in position to win. And yeah, I don't really see any holes in this team like you saw against A&M. If you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
Just not a hole at quarterback. It's not a revolving door there. You got your running back set in stone. You're not losing your best player at the running back position like the Aggies are. You've got a really good veteran receiving room with gaps for freshmen to fill those. But I think Mike Norvell is doing an excellent job at Florida State. The recruiting class this year, like you said, it's not the place to be like Georgia is, right? They're not a recruiting powerhouse right now, but they're climbing up. You know, they're top 20 in the nation, 16th per 24/7, and they're top 5 in transfer rankings as well. So, I mean, just they are killing it across the board in recruiting. You got to like what they've done in the recruiting cycle this year, Ben. And
of course,
they lose a couple guys, like I said, but you get a 3-star edge from South Carolina, and you get Darrell Jackson, the defensive lineman from Miami, you know, and you get a lot of other guys. So look, they're going to be good. They're going to be good. You got a lot of they're a veteran team, you know, and I'm going to continue to say it. They're veteran. If this isn't the year that they're going to go out there and get the job done, you're going to have to wait a couple years for another quarterback to develop, to get another running back in the system that can play like Trey Benson can play. And it's going to be some time before you're like this again. But Florida State, FSU, they're moving in the right direction, Ben. And before we get off of them, let's go to our final record prediction for FSU this season.
Okay.
And ultimately,
11-1.
Oh wow, coming out hot, 11-1. Ultimately, if we do ACC expectations, this can definitely change. So if there's something, injuries in camp, or God forbid, you never hope that happens, but if there is, if someone transfers in the spring transfer portal, or something like that, these will change if we do ACC expectations. So don't get that twisted up. But yeah, Florida State, LSU, golly, another one of those games is going to be really fun to watch this season. But honestly,
definitely turns that one.
I think you take one loss this year, and it's either they have a favorable schedule. It's going to be interesting to see what we see out of Miami, what we're going to see out of Florida, because those two games could bite them in the butt down the stretch. But that middle half of the
Florida
schedule,
will.
I mean, you never know. Trevor Etienne,
I think LSU could. I think LSU could, and I think
LSU could really plague them, because I think if you lose to LSU week 1, you drop a pretty hefty amount in the rankings. It's gonna be tough to get back. So that's a must-get game.
Clemson is Clemson, so maybe, but they're not that great of a Clemson team.
They are pretty good. They got Will Shipley, Cade Klubnik. I mean,
but watching them against y'all was something I didn't want to watch. So
yeah, that's true. That is true.
Yeah. Maybe they have the offseason to figure everything out and get the chemistry. So they're still Clemson, and they're still with Dabo Swinney, so he'll figure something out.
Yeah. Last year they only lost to Clemson by a touchdown, 6 points. DJ Uiagalelei played the whole game. Will Shipley ran for over 100 yards on him. So tail of the tape says Will Shipley can run the ball against Florida State, but it developed Jared Verse. You never know. But yeah, I think you beat Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Duke, Wake Forest without Sam Hartman. Pitt with Phil Jerkovic should be a win. Northern Alabama, obviously. Boston College, Southern Miss are both wins. And, yeah, it's going to be tough to find a loss in that schedule. Clemson definitely could be one of them. And maybe Miami, if Tyler Van Dyke has a good season, going to be fun to see what they can do. But, yeah, Ben, we've both got them going 11-1, 10-2, and that kind of range. Like I said, could change with ACC expectations, what we see at a spring camp. But you ready to wrap this one up, buddy? Okay, I think we've lost Ben to the Wi-Fi once again. Ben has fallen a victim to the Wi-Fi. He's been swept up in the bad Wi-Fi at his house right now. But, yeah, I think we're about ready to wrap this episode 38 up. Oh, Ben's back once again. What do you know?
It's literally like the worst timing.
Ben's back on the podcast. But, no. Episode 38, that will be it for it. We give it to you a day early. Make sure to show us some love. Check out our Twitter and Instagram. Go follow those things. Give us a 5-star review. And like I said, episode 39, Ben.
Are we telling them? Big are we keeping it?
No. Let's keep it a secret. They'll see it once it comes out. Big guest coming up for episode 39. Yeah, suspense for sure. I will say, former player.
It's the biggest that we,
Former player. Big time media member. We're excited to have him. He's going to bring a lot of knowledge. What'd you say?
Yeah. Biggest we've had and maybe the biggest we will have. So,
yeah. No disrespect to, Withrow's up there. I'm with Chad Withrow.
He is.
Chad Withrow, absolutely phenomenal to have on the show. I've loved everyone we've had on the show, right? Eric Henry, Ty Richardson, Jack Patterson.
Oh, for sure.
Billy. Yeah. Coming on in episode 3 was just phenomenal to work with. So all those guys.
That was great.
Made for great episodes, but episode 39 could top them. Episode 39 could be that one that says signature episode of Southern Boy Sports. Could be a fun one. And the best Instagram graphic I think we'll ever have.
Got me excited.
So just be ready. If you're following us on Instagram, make sure to be ready for that episode 39 post. But this will do it for episode 38. The future of Texas A&M and Florida State. Make sure to use code SBS15. Follow our socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Ben, any other objections before we end off episode 38 of the show?
No, I'm all right.
All right. Well, the Aggies, the Noles, episode 38 of Southern Boys Sports. Before we go, I'm ready for college football, Ben. I don't know about you. It was a beautiful Saturday afternoon.
We got a bit though.
Yeah. Luke Combs' new album was out. It was a great day for college football. I felt like to come home, watch the 3:30 game on CBS, but it wasn't there, so just over 150 days to go, and then we will be at that checkpoint. But that will do it for episode 38 of the Southern Boys Sports Podcast. Same time, same place, next week. See you, boys.